Every purchase you make has two price tags. The first one is visible. It appears on your screen when you tap your card and disappears from your memory before the week is over. The second price tag is invisible. It never appears anywhere. It is the price of what that money would have become if you had given it somewhere to grow instead of spending it. And the invisible price is always higher than the visible one, sometimes by a little, sometimes by a factor of 10 or 20 or 40, depending on how many years you had left to let it compound. The gap between those two price tags is not the cost of enjoying your money. It is the cost of never knowing the second price existed. Most people go their entire financial lives without seeing it, not because they are irresponsible, because nobody showed them where to look. This is the story of someone who finally did. You are 22 years old. The rent is paid. The paycheck covers what it needs to cover. And $10 a day leaves your life without leaving a memory. A breakfast sandwich, a convenience stop at the gas station, a delivery fee on an order you placed without thinking. The $10 disappears in 3 or 4 small transactions that individually feel too minor to track and collectively become the one financial decision that defines the next 30 years of your life more than any other single variable. Not because you are reckless, because no one has ever shown you the second price tag. One evening, a number stops you mid-scroll. $10 a day invested in a broad market index fund tracking the S&P 500 at its historical average return of approximately 10% annually becomes over $600,000 in 30 years. You run the calculation 3 times because the result looks like a typo. It is not a typo. It is compounding. And compounding does not behave the way intuition expects, because intuition is linear and compounding is exponential. The result looks wrong because your brain is calibrated for a world where things grow in straight lines. Money in the right structure does not grow in a straight line. It curves upward, and the curve steepens with every single year you leave it running. You open a brokerage account the next morning, not because you are ready, because you understand for the first time that not starting is also a decision, and that decision carries its own price tag, one that compounds silently in the background of every year you wait. You select a total market index fund with an expense ratio of 0.03%. You set up an automatic daily transfer of $10. The transfer happens before you see the money, before the day has a chance to create a reason to spend it instead. This is the most important structural decision you will ever make about money. Not the amount, the automation. Wealthy people did not build wealth through willpower alone. They built it by removing the decision from their own hands and letting a system make it every single month, without requiring their motivation or their mood. Day 1. The account shows $10. It looks identical to doing nothing. That is the first test, and the one that quietly ends most people's financial trajectories before they begin. The beginning of something that will compound into $600,000, and the beginning of nothing look exactly the same from the outside. You are 1 year in. The balance is $3,800. You deposited $3,650. The market added $150 without your involvement. $150 that required no additional hours, no second job, no skill, no decision beyond the one you made 11 months ago when you set up the transfer. The number is small and you know it. What it represents is not small. The mechanism is alive and running in your name every single day, whether you think about it or not. You are 3 years in. The account holds approximately $12,500. You deposited $10,950. The market added $1,550. The number still does not feel like anything. This is the phase that ends most people's investing before it begins. Not because they run out of money, because they run out of belief. The first 3 years of consistent investing look, from the inside, like discipline with no visible payoff. Like training for a game nobody told you was happening. The game is happening. The compounding is running every single day. The returns are real, and they are compounding on themselves. But the base is still small enough that the growth does not register emotionally, and the brain responds to signals. The account is not sending any yet. This is where most people redirect the $10 towards something that delivers feedback right now. A subscription, a purchase that arrives in 2 days and feels like a reward for months of restraint. Every one of those redirections feels reasonable in the moment. Together, they are the most expensive financial decision a person can make, not because of the $10, but because of the 30 years of compounding that leaves with it. You leave the account alone. You are 5 years in. The account holds approximately $23,200. You deposited $18,250. The market generated $4,950 without a single additional decision on your part. Nearly $5,000 produced by consistency and time, and the arithmetic of how invested capital grows in a functioning market. You did not earn that $4,950. You deposited $18,250 into the right structure and left it long enough for it to begin working independently. You run the second price tag calculation for the first time. The $18,250 you invested over 5 years. What was the visible price of each of those $10 days? A coffee. A convenience purchase you cannot name. Something that cost $10 and lasted an afternoon. The invisible price was $4,950 in generated returns and a growing engine gaining mass every month. Once you see that calculation, you cannot stop running it. Not on every purchase, not with anxiety, with clarity. The $10 is never just $10. It is $10 plus whatever $10 becomes when it is given time and the right structure to grow inside. You are 10 years in. The account holds approximately $62,000. You deposited $36,500. The market built $25,500 on top of that. The account has stopped feeling like a savings jar. It feels like a second income that has not introduced itself yet. Your checking account tells you where you are in the month. The investment account tells you where you are going. And where you are going is somewhere the checking account alone could never take you. The market drops 19% in the first quarter of your 32nd year. The balance falls from $68,000 to roughly $55,000 in 11 weeks. The news is loud. Every headline is engineered to produce action, to make staying still feel like negligence. You log into the account more than you should. You read articles you cannot use. Every instinct says move the money. Wait until things settle. Come back when certainty returns. The certainty never returns. That is not a failure of the market. That is the design. The market has never waited for certainty, and it never will. You do nothing. 8 months later, the account sits at $71,000, higher than before the drop. That recovery teaches you something permanent. The market does not reward the most informed investor. It rewards the most patient one. You paid for that lesson with 11 weeks of discomfort and 1 decision to stay. It is the cheapest tuition you will ever pay. You are 15 years in. The account holds approximately $136,000. You deposited $54,750. The market contributed $81,250. For the first time, the market's share of your account is larger than yours. You are now a minority contributor to your own wealth. The compounding is outpacing your deposits. Time has taken over as the primary driver, and time does not take days off. Here is the number nobody shows you clearly. The $10 you did not invest at 22 does not cost you $10. It costs you what $10 becomes over 33 years at 10% compounded annually. Nearly $200 every single day. Every daily purchase made before you understood what you were actually deciding carried an invisible price of $200 that appeared on no receipt and showed up on no statement. That is the second price tag. That is what 30 years of compounding costs in reverse when the money goes the other direction. The coffee was never the enemy. The invisible price tag on the coffee was. You are at dinner with your younger sister. She is 24. She works a job she is still figuring out and spends money the way everyone does at 24, without tracking the second price because no one has shown it to her yet. Somewhere between the main course and the check, she asks you something unexpected. She says you seem unbothered by things that stress everyone else out. She wants to know why. You do not know how to answer without sounding like a lecture, so you open your phone and show her the account balance instead. She looks at the number for a long moment without speaking. Not the way people look at something impressive, the way people look at something that does not fit the frame they have been given for what is possible. Then she asks the question everyone asks. How? You tell her one thing. $10 a day. Automated. For 13 years. She looks at the phone again. Then she looks at you. She says she spends that on coffee most mornings without thinking twice. You tell her that is exactly the point. The $10 she spends is not $10. It is the second price tag that never appears on the receipt. The price you pay later, in the gap between what you have and what you could have built. She is quiet for a moment. You can see her running the number in her head the way you ran it at 22 and did not believe it the first time. She goes home that night and opens an account. She texts you the confirmation screenshot at 11 p.m. 3 words. It looks like nothing. You reply 2 words. It is. That is the whole story compressed into a single exchange. The beginning of something that compounds into $600,000. And the beginning of nothing are indistinguishable at day 1. The difference does not become visible for years. And that invisibility is the only thing standing between most people and an outcome the math has been offering them the entire time. You are 20 years in. The account holds approximately $228,000. You deposited $73,000. The market built $155,000 on top of that, more than double your total contributions, generated without a single active decision. And the account has done something the money alone cannot explain. It has changed who you are. Not through motivation, not through financial epiphanies, through evidence. 20 years of proof that one correct decision, automated and sustained without drama, builds something real. Evidence changes behavior in a way that advice never can. You no longer need to be told to invest. The account is the argument, and the account makes itself every single day. You begin to see every financial choice through a different lens, not with restriction, with precision. The discretionary purchase gets weighed against a second question you now ask automatically. What is the actual price of this? Not the visible one, the second one. That question is the second asset the account builds. The first is $228,000. The second is a version of you that money cannot purchase and no course can teach. It is built only by having a compounding account long enough for the evidence to become undeniable. You are 25 years in. The account holds approximately $373,000. It now generates approximately $37,000 in a single average year at 10% returns, more than the median individual income in several U.S. states, produced without a single hour of your labor, without a single active decision beyond the one you made at 22. You did not need a managed portfolio. You did not need a financial advisor at 22, or a premium investing app, or a strategy that required a spreadsheet to understand. You needed an index fund, an automatic transfer, and the patience to leave it alone until the compounding had time to become undeniable. That is the entire strategy. The people selling complexity are selling themselves, not you. You are 30 years in. The account holds approximately $592,000. You deposited $109,500. The market built $482,500 on top of that. For every dollar you contributed, the market returned $4.40. The account generates nearly $60,000 a year without requiring a single hour of your labor. Enough to cover most Americans' full annual expenses without touching the principal. This is not retirement math. This is the math of options, of choosing your work because you want it, not because you need the paycheck, of having a floor beneath your income that does not disappear when the income does. $10 a day built that floor, not in one dramatic decision, in 10,000 small automated ones made before the day had a chance to spend them. The account does not know your name. It does not care about your income or your background or whether you felt ready the morning you opened it. It knows one variable: how long it has been running. And it rewards that one variable with a consistency no other financial product can match over a 30-year horizon. Somewhere right now, a 22-year-old is holding $10. They are tired and they are hungry, and $10 feels like exactly $10 and nothing more. They cannot see the second price tag yet. They do not know the money in their hand is not a $10 decision. It is a 30-year decision wearing a $10 price tag. The first contribution to an engine that, if started tonight and left running, will generate more money than most people earn across a full decade of work, without a single additional hour of their labor. They will not feel that tonight. Tonight, it will feel like $10. That is exactly how it is supposed to feel. The mechanism does not require belief to work. It requires a start. The belief comes later. Around year 5, when $4,950 appears that required nothing from you. And again at year 10, when the balance crosses $60,000. And again at year 20, when you realize the market has contributed more to your account than you have, and you have not done a single thing to deserve it, except begin early and refuse to stop. The $10 is the key. The 30 years is the door. You already have the key. Start tonight.